So what is GOFAR? Well, the Georgia Online Formative Assessment Resource is another system that will provide the ability for districts and schools to assign benchmark and formative assessment tests to students in order to obtain information about student progress and instructional practices. So from a district point of view, you can assign the different benchmarks and other assessments that either the Georgia Department of Education has created or ones that you create yourself. It will also allow educators and their students to have access to a variety of test items. So we will have what we call a teacher bank in which teachers can go in there and they can create their own test and then allow students to take them and then therefore give back feedback to the teacher to know whether or not students are really grasping those concepts that they're teaching in the classroom. Well, the first thing that I think that is really huge and really kind of a good selling point for GOFAR is that students, staff, and classes are pre-populated and maintained through the state longitudinal data system. So what does that mean? That means there is no more teacher file, class or staff, teacher, and student files to upload. Those days, if you had a student come to you today from another school system and you register them in your school, then they put it in their SIS system. The next day, that student would be in GOFAR too. What else? Well, teachers and administrators may view exemplars and rubrics in item preview. And I know that has been a thorn in everybody's side with our new items that we have been uploading for the past 2 years into the old or their current system, the online assessment system. Well, we have built that in so when you are shopping for an item, you can see the rubrics and the exemplars right away, and I will be showing that here shortly. And probably the third thing that is really huge that everybody will like, and that is the scoring. There is going to be a scoring code that may be distributed at a local level to help with scoring for the constructive response items. So in other words, you assign a benchmark to all the third graders in your school system. Currently in the OES, if all the students take it online, the only people who can score those are those with a level 3 access. Well, with GOFAR, when a system level person decides to assign that benchmark out to their schools, they will receive 2 codes. One is the actual test code that students will have to enter in order to take the test, but there's a second code that is called a scoring code. You can distribute that code to anybody who will help you score those items. So those extended response type items, those constructive response, that can't be scored automatically. That code can be distributed to maybe every teacher or a handful of teachers or whoever. So those are 3 major things that I think are a great enhancement that I think hopefully you will like. With those, I am going to continue on and kind of talk about the different functions at the different levels. The majority of these functions are very similar and very much the same. The district will get a little bit more of what they can do versus a school and a teacher. We're going to still hold the bank because they are the same items that are in the OES, which were level 1, level 2, level 3. Well, in GOFAR, we just call them practice items. For those are your level 1 items. And then we have your teacher bank, which are your level 2 items. And then we have your system bank, which is your level 3 items. So those at the system level will be able to see those system bank. Well, how do you have access to GOFAR? Well, one, you don't have a URL. Everything is run through your student information system. What you will do, this should look fairly familiar, but there will be a new button called GOFAR. And that GOFAR button will be right there in your student information system when you log into the SLDS. So that's State Longitudinal Data System. part of your SIS. You will still have the SLDS menu up at the top, and then you will have your GOFAR. And there's really only 3 functions because there's not a whole lot to it, and that's the beauty of great systems, is that they're basic and easy to use. So you have an item bank button, you have a test creation button, and you have a test administration button. Then you have a left side, which is kind of where you will be choosing and searching for various stuff. Over on the right side are your actual items. So working in the item bank tab, that's where we're going to start. So that first tab, again, was over on the left, which was over here. So if you are teaching first grade, you would click, and when you click on here, it'll actually come up with kind of a drop-down menu. You pick the grade that you want. Then if you want to pick a subject, like language arts, you would pick that. If you have a specific domain that you're looking for, you would pick that. So for this particular instance, they're looking for grade 1 language arts items that have a language standards. You can leave these blank, or you can find even more. For one, you can even look up by depth of knowledge. We have items that are 1, 2, 3, 4, and I believe there may be even a few 5s. But once you find what you want, you just click search. Then those items will come up over here. If you click on this little arrow here, that's going to pull up what we call the metadata. So you will see everything that is available there. If you like that item, you can always hit the add for the card, or maybe you still need to look at the actual item. Well, then you would click on the preview. So you would be able to see, okay, yeah, I do like this item, or maybe I don't like this item. Whenever this happens and you're finished looking at it, you just need to press the X. So if you like that item, what you would do is then click and add it to what you want. As you can see on this one, if you wanted to look for a constructed response item, say you were looking for a grade 1 or a grade 5, why you'd look up those two at the same time, who knows, but you may. And then you would click on maybe constructed response. Those are the only items I want to look for. Well, you hit search, and you come up with an item, and then you would press preview, and then you can see what that item looks like. And as you can see, this is what a constructive response item would look like. And this, remember, this look is not what the students will see, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So what you would do is you can look through, and you can see the scroll bar over here where you can scroll down that item. At the bottom of the item, you can see that the rubric is right there for that particular item. Also is the exemplar file. So if you want to look and see how other students, other Georgia students, have answered this question, and you want to see samples and how they were scored, you just click on that exemplar file, and with that, a PDF will pop up, and you can look that over. You can add it to what we call the cart. And so what is the exemplar file? Just to go over that so everybody is understanding what it is, they are a set of responses from actual Georgia students that were scored by trained raters using the rubric posted. These papers allow teachers to review and compare their own students' work to the sample responses for each score point, which will help standardize expectations of the standards. This is the work that you have been helping us with for the past 2 years. You can see all of these right now in the online assessment system. It's just in GOFAR, they're also going to be there. I mean, so it's the same items and the same rubrics and all that that you currently have access to. Now, one thing that you will notice in some of the math items, and is a notice that says, be sure to complete all parts of the task, write your answer, and show your work on the paper provided. Do not type your answer in the text box below. Well, if you come across an item that is like that, unless there's some kind of math formula in there that prevents a child from actually utilizing that and putting their answer in there, they may do so. But that message will continue to be there until we have a math editor on GOFAR. Once we get the math editor on GOFAR, this message will be removed from each and every item. So just one heads up on that. You've seen this. If you've been in OES, you've seen this exact same message. And the reason why it's there is because in the OES there was no math editor. And currently in GOFAR there is not a math editor, but it will be coming at some point soon. So just word of warning about that particular message when you come across it. So how do you create a test? Well, you've already seen kind of how you shop. I'm going to touch on this cart thing. And like if you saw an item, you would add it to your cart. There are basically 3 different ways that you can create a test. You can create a test using filters. You can create a test using the cart. And you can create a test using the test creation tab. Using filters to create a test. So that's kind of where we're going to begin. You can create a student test by selecting items from the question bank to add to the test. You may choose to use the search filter option to regulate the items that you select for the test along with the items that appear in the search result area. So if I want grade 1, I want language arts, now do I want constructed response or selected response, or do I want both? It doesn't matter. If I want both, I just leave it alone. Then once I do that, I click search. Now from here, I can do a quick create the test. And I would do that by clicking add test with selected filters. So in other words, whatever filters I've created here, then I will get all those items that will be pulled into this test. So then I click on that and it comes up. And this is called a random test creation. Now, what do I want to call this test? Well, these are the things that we got to go through. So the test detail first. I got to call it something. One, you need to come up with something unique. You need to come up with something that you're going to remember. And if anything, write it down. Because at first, when you first start getting into this, there's not going to be very many tests in there. But over time, there will be many tests in there. Come up with some kind of naming convention that you're going to remember or whatever so you can start recalling these tests. So that's your title. You have your student navigation. Do you want your children to be able to skip around, go from like question 1 to question 5 to question 3 to question 10? If you want them to be able to do that, just hit able to skip. The other thing is remember how we came up with this test. We came up with this test by doing a filter and said, here are all these items. How many of those items do you want in your test? If you want 5 of them, you click 5. You can also hit avoid previously used questions. And if you click on that, it will not select questions that you have used previously. So let's go to the next one. And what this is going to do is going to show you kind of the test attributes. This is all chosen based off of the items itself. So you don't have to click any of these. But then once you've gone through this and you've saved it, now it will create your test. And it will automatically select the number of items you said you wanted out of the number that were in that filter that you created. Again, remember, this is the one way to create a test. This is actually a fairly quick way to create a test if you are going to a specific standard or domain or whatever. And now, how do you want the test reported? Do you want it percentiles or do you want it by a score? You can put a minimum time. Default's going to be 0. And then there's a maximum time. Again, how many minutes maximum do you want them to be spending in it? And how many times do you want the students to attempt a question? So this would be more for your selected response or multiple choice questions. Can they only have one attempt at it? If you have 3 attempts, you know they're going to get them right because they're process of elimination eventually. Because most of the questions are 3 or 4 answers. Some of them do have 5, but that's the norm is probably 4 there. You also have whether students can have their responses validated, show feedback, and show a solution, and then go through each of those. Over on the right side, these are the items that were selected. You can remove them, or you can click on it, and that'll do a preview. The maximum attempts designates the maximum number of times a student can attempt to answer an item in the test. Not the maximum number of times to take the test, but a particular item. Also, you have the validate responses. What does validate responses mean? It's a dynamic validation is provided for all student responses. Then you have show feedback. At the time the maximum attempt limit is reached, the student is provided feedback relative to the action. So in other words, if you click on show feedback and the student's allowed to attempt it twice, and after the second time they still haven't gotten it, it's going to give them some feedback. Show solution. At the time the maximum attempt is reached, the student is provided relative to the solution. Another thing that you need to make sure you do is lock a test. Lock the test will not allow any more edits, and then you can also start to assign the test. You can also go back and delete a test. Print. You can also print the test. You can also clone the test. Preview. You can click on preview and you can see what the student will now actually see. And then of course save everything that you've done. Once you've saved it, then it's going to take you to what we call the test attributes tab. So right now we know these 3 items are first grade, language arts, and they are language standards, and they're from the teacher bank. So in other words, what we are used to calling level 2 items. Then you have the 3rd tab, which is called the test score range definition tab, which provides the option to modify the test student test score range objectives. So in other words, how do you want these to come back? The default is going to be 0 through 50, did not meet the learning objectives. 50 to 75% are minimally met the learning objectives, and then 75 to 100 met the learning objectives. If you don't like these or you want to edit them, you can. All you have to do is click Edit, and once you do that, you just change the range from here. So say you built it this way, and you just want some more items. It just wasn't enough, or the what was automatically thrown in there was okay, but it wasn't quite what you wanted. You can always go back and remove these items, and you can do bring items in from your cart, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. The only way you can do this is as long as this is not locked. Right now, if it says lock, that means you would have to click on it to lock it, and then it would say unlock. So then you'd have to click on it to unlock it. So as long as it says lock right there, you know you can continue to change the test. If you want to lock it so you can't, you would click on that part, and then that would set it right in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next part, which is called create a test using the cart. Here, if you're going to find items and put them in your cart, and it's kind of like when you go shopping online, what you do is you're shopping for questions and you're sticking them in your cart, and then once your cart is full or the way you want it, then you basically buy them by creating a test. So kind of a way to go about that. So to create a new test using the cart function, you go back to your search right here, which is I want grade 1, language arts, and a language standard. I would hit search, and then it would come up with all those items. If we want to preview the item, we just click on preview. But the big thing is If I want to add to my cart, I click on it there, and you can see right now I have 4 items in my cart. So if I click on this one, now I will have 5 items in my cart. Then click on the actual cart, and that'll show me what's in my cart. So there are my items that are in my cart. If I have second thoughts, I don't want it, I can remove it. I can preview all the items at one time. If I'm good with all those, I can create a test, new test with the cart. So that's the second way to create a test. So create a test using the test creation tab is very similar in that you can go through to hit test creation. And what it'll do is it'll list all the tests that are in that you have access to. And then if you want to create a new test, you hit add new test. When you click on add new test, then you decide what the name of it is, and you would fill out all the same information that you did before, and then you click on save. And then you have your test right here, and this is very similar to if I built the test by cart, because if I hit it, create a test by cart, what's going to happen is this is going to pop up. See how they're kind of coming, they're still the same, you're going to eventually end up in the same spot every time. Now, once you have created your test, you think it's the way you want it, all you have to do is hit preview. It's going to pull up the test the way that the test will be seen by the student. So this is what a student would see in GOFAR when they're looking at a particular test. You can see right here, this question was answered, and the student said he checked the response, and he said, this is good to go, I'm out of here. If it's red, that means that the question is being answered right now. That's the question you are on. If it's blue, those are answers that the student has yet to get to. And then if it's orange, that means the student clicked on next, but didn't hit check response. So in other words, they can come back to it. When you hit check response, the student can't come back to that answer and try to change it. Green does not necessarily mean that the question is correct. The question could be incorrect. It just means that it's good to go to be graded. That is kind of what the colors mean. Over time, they're just going to they'll get used to the colors and what they mean. Okay, so once a student is finished with it, and of course they can go backwards or forwards, and they can even click up here to jump around on questions. But when they're finished, they would click on finish. Once you click on finish test, it's going to ask you to confirm or cancel. It's going to tell you, hey, you had a total of 4 questions, but only attempted 2. So right now, this is what's going on. And you press OK, and then you get another screen. And it says you have successfully completed. Now, once your test is built, the next thing that you need to do is actually administer the test to somebody. So the Test Administration tab provides the teacher with the following options. 1, the test assignment, the test management, and the test scoring. Go up to this third menu. Remember this bar right here. It's going to be right underneath the SLDS bar, and then you'll have this one. And what we're going to do is click on Test Assignment. And when you click on Test Assignment, then all you are going to do is then look at tests that you have created, but they haven't been assigned. So what you want to do is filter, and up on the top, you'll notice that all these are filters up here. This is different ways that you can filter. And that's why it's important that, like this one's your title. If you have titles that you're used to using, if you click on it and you put in different things, you can say, has this in it, or begins with, or whatever, then you can easily find it. Because over time, you're going to start building up more and more tests. Once you've done that, what you want to do is click on Assign Test once you've found the test that you want to put out there. And when you do that, this is the screen that's going to come up. There are a couple things that you have to do. 1, there's your test name. Well, you need to call it a test form name now, because that's your test identifier. if you're going to end up using this test over and over again, you may want a different test form name. So maybe I created a test and I want to give it now, I want to give it again in January, and I want to give it again in May. So then I would call it whatever October test, and then I'll come back and I'll do that same test again, but I'll call it January test, and then I'll come back again and call it the May test. That way I can identify which one is which when I'm looking at the results. Don't forget this part. This is probably the easiest button that I keep forgetting to do, is click Published. If it's not published, the students will never see it. So you do need to make sure that you click Published to make sure of that. Then you have a date. You need to put in date range and then the test day. What days of the week? If you have a test range Monday through Friday, then you need to click all Monday through Friday if you want them to test on Monday through Friday. But if you only see these students on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you only want to take it in your classroom, you can put that date range and put Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you can actually put it in for your class period. This is a key one right here, and that is your test code. So you'll want to write this down, or once you get students assigned, I think one of these, it says print in that. But you can, once you have all this saved in that, there is a print button in which you can print. But once you've entered in this data here and have that the way you want it, then you pick your classes. And again, these classes come from the SLDS. So if you have classes built in the SLDS, those same classes are going to pop in here. Then all you have to do is assign them. You can assign it to the entire class, or you can click on the plus sign. That'll open it up and it'll show every one of your students. And then you can just click on specific students if you just want to give it to a couple students. Then once you have them checked, click Add. Those students will then populate over here. Then once you've done that and you save, your test is ready to go. Now, it does take about 10 minutes from the time you hit save to a student being able to log on. Once you've clicked Saved, a message will come up and it'll say Submitted Successfully. And again, here's that message. Please allow 10 minutes for the test to become active in GOFAR prior to the students testing. Now, once that's done, then you just manage the assigned tests. So a student would then go off, take the test and everything, but you can manage it. And manage it means maybe I need to open it up longer. Maybe I need to actually grade the test or anything to that. On this drop down right here, you would hit the Manage the Test and the Test Administrator tab. Again, select Test Management, click the Manage in the row. Find the test that you want. Say this is the test you want. You click Manage. There's also this button here called Report we'll get to, and then there's this Print button. But we're going to click the Manage first. And with that, as you can see, there's those students that we picked that came over. And then you can also remove students if you need to. You can see on here, this says Remove. Well, actually that says Review, and that says Remove. When this lights up for review, those are the students you would then would grade their test because you're reviewing their work. If you are at a district level and you are assigning a test to all your third graders or all your high schoolers or whatever, your window is going to look a little bit different. And this is why this is a district administrator view. It's just slightly different in that you have a passcode for this test and you have a scoring passcode. So you can see right here, this is the passcode that the students will need. Then you have a scoring passcode. So if you're going to have people help you with scoring, you would just get this passcode to those people and those people only. Whoever has this passcode can help you score. That is something that is very different and hopefully will be very helpful. And in order for somebody to help you with scoring a test, what they would do is click on Test Administration and then where it says scoring the test, they would click on that, which would bring up this window here. They would type in the passcode, click search, and then after you've done that, then those that they have access to, they can then start scoring. And you can see that right here. There is the code. They press search. These are the tests that they have access to. This one right here says pending review, so they would just have to click on it and review and score that particular student's test. So that is one way to do it if you're doing a benchmark, and you can assign and have other people help you. Otherwise, if you are a teacher, so going back to a teacher view, and it's your own test, and it has those constructed response, again, you would find what you need. You would hit manage. Once you hit manage, and you can see right there, this student, pending review, whereas this student, this test is still assigned, that one's still assigned, all these are still signed. This student here actually took the test. He just needs to be reviewed. So what you would do is you click on review, and then therefore it will pop up this screen right here. So these are the questions that need to be scored. So they would just click on one of those. You would see the student's answer. Depending on the rubric, there's the exemplar again. You can enter in the rubric score, press submit. When you finish scoring all the items, you press finish scoring. And then comes the next part, and that is reports. Once you have had your students take tests, what you would do is, again, go to the test administration, go to management. Only this time we're going to click on report. And what all this is doing is it's sending the information over to the SLDS. Because GOFAR is in one system, SLDS is in another system. And then what you need to do, what you'll get is a pop-up, report successfully submitted, check SLDS reports. Now, once you've done that, you do allow for about 10 minutes for the information to go over there and populate. Once it's done that, everything should then flow from there. The student proficiency reports provide assessment data based on the following categories. 1, test name, test domain, standard, and item. There's assessment reporting and there's student reporting. So you can look at it at a higher level, and then you can drill all the way down to the student. Again, wait until the 10 minutes have passed after you've hit report, and then you can click on the SLDS part. Then what you want to do is go to the very near the bottom, not the very bottom, but near the bottom. You'll see a section called Georgia Online Formative Assessment Resource. You click on that button. It'll be at the bottom right, and then at that point it will pull up all your assessment that your students have taken. We're going to quickly go over the student functions, but student functions are fairly basic. There is a separate dashboard for the students. So when a student goes to the URL, to the website, if they want to enter in as guests, and that's what we're going to start off first, and we're going to do this part first, then we're going to come back and kind of show this part. So what you do is you click up right here and then click submit. Once you've done that, then it's just a matter of finding and filtering, again, what tests do they want. If they're grade 1, they would just click on grade 1, language arts, click on that. There are the tests that are available. Then they would click on take test. Once they've done that, they'll go through, take the test. Again, we've kind of already seen this with the teacher preview of the student test. So nothing's changed there. Once they've completed the test, everything comes up, same screens, and then they can see their results. And that would be it for a practice test. For a teacher-made test or a benchmark, a little bit different in that you ignore this first part and instead put the student GTID in. With the student GTID, then they just need the test passcode. That was the test passcode that you were given, that 5-digit code. enter that in, press submit. It will show who they are, so make sure that they are who they are if they're not. But if they're ready to go, click Take Test. Again, they'll go through, take the test. When finished, press Finish Test. If they are taking a test with constructive response, so say they have these, their answer here, it's going to come up with a pop-up that basically says their teacher has to go in and do something, therefore they can't, it isn't graded yet. And they would just then press OK. And then once they've done that, it takes them right on out. Now, one thing that isn't happening right now, which will eventually happen, is that when a student does finish and say it was all multiple choice or selected response items, right now the only way they can see their results is for the teacher to print off after they've gone in and they can hand it to them. But eventually when the parent portal is fully functioning in SLDS, then they will be able to see their results in there. Some key points. 1, GOFAR will time out depending upon the idle time limit set by your student information system. If it is going way too quick, you need to talk to your SIS person and see if they can lengthen that time a little bit. Anticipated future additions. Well, one of the things is not all the items are in GOFAR yet. We are working on them. We've got about 16,000 of them in. We have about 8,000 more items to go. So just to kind of give you a ballpark idea of what's going on there. So we are still constantly, that part of the project will be complete probably sometime winter 2015, so fall 2014, winter 2015. With that, until all the items are in, or at least the items that are on benchmarks or frameworks, we can't upload those. So again, once the items are all in, then we'll be able to upload the benchmarks and frameworks. That should be complete in fall 2014, winter 2015. Also, eventually, we are going to have a math editor. So as you see some of those math problems that need certain symbols in that, eventually that will be available. We will also have an online calculator available in that. One thing that we are still working on, and that is the passages. When you get in there, the passages are not linked together. If you pull up an item and it has a passage, you may not be able to see the other items there. We are working on getting that linked. Do remember that you still have the online assessment system throughout this school year that is fully functioning. Everything's there. So as you come online here, this is a great time to learn it, get to know the system, and when the OAS goes away at the end of the school year, then you'll be fully ready for GOFAR, as this will be the fully functioning. But this year we are running parallel programs to help everybody get used to it.